In John Muir's book Horror Films FAQ, he lists the 3 ways the best horror movies scare their audience. These include addressing timely subject matters, the way the directors frame their shots, and by using the jump scare. We've all experienced it when we've been watching a film, there's been complete silence, and then suddenly something comes out of nowhere and makes us jump. It's the most basic trick in a horror movie rulebook, created in order to make the audience scream and jump out of their seats. Writer of the film Sinister described a good jump scare being like a magic trick. They try to distract you and then suddenly throw something at you. Commonly, jump scares follow a very basic formula. There's a strong sense of atmosphere as a character slowly investigates a scene, everything starts to become silent as the characters and audience believe that they're safe, and when the tension reaches its crescendo, something jumps out. Jump scares weren't always a trope of horror movies and wouldn't start to be used until the 60s following the stair scene in Psycho. In the 80s, jump scares started to become huge in horror with the rise of slasher movies. And that's what's led to today's landscape of horror movies being completely filled with these jump scares. There are many ways that you can use jump scares in the movie, some of which can be very effective and others can end up being quite lazy. Since it's the easiest way to scare the audience, many directors choose to use it sparingly in place of atmosphere and tension, something that many pre-80s horror movies used effectively. There are traditional ways to use the jump scare, and then there are other ways that leave very mixed results. The film Insidious and its subsequent sequels are prime examples of what Mark Kermode calls cattle prod cinema, films that rely heavily on jump scares to scare their audience. The most effective of these jump scares is the now famous Face of Fire scene. At this point of the film, basically any time a jump scare has happened, it's been at night time. The film has a large emphasis on lucid dreams and focuses on characters being attacked by demons that can only attack while on this plane. In this scene, we are shown 3 characters talking during the daytime. We instantly let our guard down because at this point, most of the horror has happened at night. While a character describes her dream, we are surrounded by the colour blue. There's a blue painting in the background, the walls are kind of blue, and Patrick Wilson wears a blue shirt. The colour of blue is one that many correlate with peacefulness, so seeing the blue imagery around the place relaxes us and lets us put our guard down. Then out of nowhere the Face of Fire appears. It's an example of the filmmakers making us relax, only to throw something big at us. The success of the Insidious movies led to a whole series of imitators who would have no suspense and throw in jump scares everywhere. But something Insidious director James Wan does differently in his jump scares is where he places the loud bang. Loud bangs are used in nearly every single jump scare in recent horror movies. The sudden switch from silence to a piercingly loud sound is what causes that jolt. It's used almost too much in more recent movies, with a lot of movies using the exact same sound effects to the point where it ends up being cheap and incredibly cheesy. The recent Slender Man movie is a prime example of how to do it incredibly badly to the point where it feels like the director is treating the audience like children. However, an interesting thing that James Wan does is he places the loud noise just after we see the monster. One follows the mantra summed up in a Hitchcock quote, which is, "There is no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it." One focuses on the build up to the scare, and many times he shows the disturbing image before the jump scare properly happens. One also puts an emphasis on using silence while building tension. This puts us in the shoes of the characters rather than putting in music or ambient noises after the fact. By helping us feel what the character is feeling, the tension leading up to the scare becomes more unbearable, causing that final jump not only to feel more rewarding, but also more effective and heart attack causing. Another great example of using complete silence before the final scare is in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. There is a scene where Nancy believes to have failed in pulling Freddy into the real world. She sits on her bed in complete silence, trying to calm herself down after being attacked in her dream, when suddenly Freddy jumps out of nowhere. Although this scene may be slightly predictable nowadays, by hanging on the silence for so long, we as the audience either start to calm down slightly before being jolted again, or we start to tense up as we know what's about to happen. Of course, not every jump scare can be this well crafted. Nowadays, jump scares are used a ridiculous amount. The website where'sthejump.com gives a rating to nearly every horror movie based on their usage of jump scares. Only 6 of the 74 movies with a 4 or 5 star jump rating was released before 2000. And when you get films like The Haunting of Connecticut 2, which has 32 jump scares, scares, on average one every 3 to 4 minutes, you're not gonna get all winners. This is where the false scare comes in. The false jump scare is one of the most overused and lazy tropes in horror movies, and its overusage in recent movies have led to many considering the jump scare as a whole one of the worst additions to the genre. The false scare is when you get the build up and tension of a normal jump scare only for it to be a cat or the main character's friend who loudly pushes their way onto screen. False jump scares have been described as the cat scare or the Luton bust, named after the scene in 1942's Cat People, which features one of the first jump scares in cinematic history. False jump scares are so overused that there are even many common techniques to doing it. This includes the fridge door scare, where a character appears when the fridge closes, the car window scare where someone suddenly pops up by the window, the animal jumping out and screeching scare, the reflection scare where a character suddenly appears in a mirror or reflection, the false wake up scare where a character thinks they've woken up from a dream only for there to be a jump scare from them to really wake up, and a delayed scare where there is a fake out scare before the actual scare. False scares in nearly every single instance are incredibly cheesy and lazy. The recent Child's Play remake is an example of a film that is ruined due to its overusage of false jump scares. The false jump scares give jump scares a bad rap in the horror movie rulebook, but when done effectively, it's just another tool to create a roller coaster experience. When handled by a director who knows what they're doing, knows how to properly place the tension of a scene, and knows exactly how little and how much to show in a scene, then jump scares can be some of the most memorable moments in the whole film.